After a lot of years in school and educational related ministries, I have a lot of recollections of graduations. As I was preparing for today, I couldn't help recalling some of them. One goes back to about 1985, long before I came here to Divine Word College. I was attending the graduation of a cousin who was graduating from Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles. And it was this time of year in lovely weather, so the exercises were held outdoors. And I suppose maybe 1,500 people, 2,000 people gathered for the graduation, all set up outside. And the dignitaries, the presidents and deans and the speaker were all on an outdoor platform, sort of a dais built up about 4 feet off the ground, I guess. So they were seated here, and then this podium was over here for the speaker. The speaker that year was Mr. Peter Ueberroth. Some of you will remember his name. He was the successful organizer of the 1984 Summer Olympics that were held in Los Angeles. The first Olympics, I think, that ever made money, and probably the last one that ever made money. But he was the successful speaker. So they all came out and processed up, and they took their seats and all of that. And the president of the university then came down to make some opening remarks at the podium, went back up to take his seat, sat down in the chair, and went, boom, completely backwards off the platform, which was like 4 feet up. And there was this audible, this gasp from the crowd. It's like, oh my God, is he hurt? Did he break bones? Did he break his neck? Whatever. And then gradually you see kind of standing up and still with the cap on, the president of the university. And he came around and went back up kind of gracefully as he could and took his seat. At the time of the speech, Peter Ueberroth, the Olympic organizer, and no one said anything. So Peter Ueberroth, the organizer of Olympic Games, said, "Father President, for that landing, we're going to give you an 8.5. And he kind of held up a thing like this and kind of made everybody feel better. Toward the end, as the president then came down to kind of do some closing remarks, he said, "I'd like to hope the graduates can learn a lesson from this, that it's possible in different moments of life to fall flat on your face, or worse, and stand up and carry on with dignity." And that was one. Another I recall, I can't help recalling, was right here, a graduate, his name Ariel Lannis, who's now just recently professed, I think, solemn vows as a Trappist, I think it is, with a new name and all of that. A very bright young guy, good student, but very shy, so quiet. I think in the whole time he was here, I think we might have had 1 or 2 conversations, I think. Just very shy and quiet. He got up here to the podium to deliver. He was the valedictorian, so he was giving the address. And some will remember it. He let out this Tarzan scream, this, "ah," and pounded his chest, and it was like everybody like, what was that? And just kind of, we hoped he wasn't kind of losing it at the moment. I think he was telling us that he had kind of gained his voice. He had found his voice here. Even if he was quiet, it didn't mean that there wasn't a lot going on inside. One kind of unforgettable one. I also remember Father Teng Wang's graduation speech. He teamed up with Old Testament Bible scholar Diane Bergant and shared poignantly about some of his refugee experience, I believe in Thailand, and how his father was part of that. Father Paul Chen, another one, talked about how lonely and distant he felt here on his first Lunar New Year, thinking of his mother back in China, he here in the tundra, here in frozen Iowa in late January or early February. Both of them coming then to the point of saying how, as they arrived here, their expectations were confused and difficult, but through the course of their time here, they discovered something precious and important, something worth all the effort they put into achieving it. This graduation will certainly be memorable. For me, it's 50-year anniversary, of course. It's the first time I recall being at a graduation where the number of graduates almost approximates the number of faculty members. It's a good thing. There's also Andrew's orange suit that will be ever etched in memory. The number of summa cum laudes, I think, last night would probably equal all of those in the whole history of the school till now, which only goes to say, if you want to raise the bar, get the sisters involved, I think. So. I'd like to go to one more recollection I have, and this one takes me back to Los Angeles, to 1982. A graduation at a high school that SVD used to staff in Los Angeles, Verbum Dei High School. If it had been founded 2 years later, it would have been called Divine Word High School, but it was still at that point in the Vatican Council where Latin was still in vogue, so Verbum Dei High School. Verbum Dei was situated at 111th and Central Avenue in South Central, right in the heart of the Watts area of LA. When I went there in 1976, very challenging environment. PCP, kind of a synthetic drug, angel dust, was just very destructive, very rampant, destroying many young lives. Gang violence was at a peak, at a pitch. On one weekend, a particular weekend, 10 young people were shot in drive-by shootings, just random drive-by shootings. A very dangerous kind of place. So sad because it was a place just so full of talent and intelligence and ability and possibilities. So there we were, Divine Word, Verbum Dei High School, kind of situated in the middle of this tough environment. We were a small school, 350, 400 students at max. Traditional Catholic school discipline, college preparatory, traditional discipline. Students wore ties every day, no earrings, no hairnets, all that kind of thing, very strict. Nothing gang affiliated, no jackets, no bandanas, nothing, just very strict. A very strong athletic program. All the kinds of things that we could put together to give people opportunities to show their talents, to realize their talents, to develop who they were. On a particular graduation afternoon, again, because it was sunny California, the exercises were outdoors. The commencement went, just as they usually do, speeches and the awarding of diplomas and all of that. It was finished. People had taken their pictures pretty much, and people had started to leave. There were very few left at all. I was going around with a couple of others, and we were just shutting doors and closing windows, that kind of thing, and I spied in the outdoor area where the graduation had just taken place one young graduate. Charles Turner was his name, standing there still in his gown, his robe, tears streaming down his face, just standing there by himself. And at first I thought, well, this is strange. This is odd. This is a day of celebration. This is a day of rejoicing. It's a day of throwing up hats and all of that. I thought to approach him, and then I thought, maybe not me. Let me get someone else. I got one of the coaches to go and find out what's troubling him. But even before that, I began to think, for Charles, he came from a difficult family situation. He was being raised by his elderly grandparents. And God bless them, elderly grandparents trying to take care of a teenager. Charles was one of those kids who seemed to, just a nice kid, seemed to find his home at the school. He would be there all the time, helping out, doing chores, running errands, helping coaching staff, anything to be at school. And he had found a home there, a place to belong. I don't know the situation with his parents. I don't know but for some reason, he was with the elderly grandparents being raised. On graduation day, no one had come with him to march and celebrate the day with him. Probably the grandparents were just unable physically to come. So there, at the end of the ceremony, the tears, and for me, the judgment was, today Charles has the sense that he's lost something really important. Today is like the day the family that he had grown to know over 4 years of high school experience had come to an end. And it was as if on that day, as he was celebrating, he was also being pushed out. 4 years of stable, caring environment in which teachers and mentors pushed him and challenged him to realize his abilities, his talents, find them and use them. He was not the quarterback. He was not the star running back. He was not the summa cum laude. He was an average kind of student, but a very nice kid with many gifts to offer. Of course, on that day when he graduated, that all didn't come to an end. So much of what he had learned was internalized and carried within him. The sense of appropriating gifts that perhaps he hadn't realized he even possessed. A beautiful personality, an ability to be helpful to others, ability to participate and join in. He joined a great fraternity of alumni, people who would care for him long time after he had left Verbum Dei High School. Charles went on to the U.S. Navy. He came back to the U.S. Air Force. He came back for a visit to the campus, sometime after his basic training in his uniform, proud, that he had gotten through that stage. And then I didn't see him again. But for me, there's always this icon of that graduation. And somehow a celebration that Verbum Dei High School, Divine Word High School, was there in that place at that time, able to offer support and help to him as an example of those hundreds and thousands and millions of people whose talents go untapped, unrealized, unsupported, because no one is there to raise them up and help them to see and understand all that they possess given by God. All these wonderful gifts. Call it what you will. You're realizing your potential, finding your gifts, discovering your voice, whatever you want to call it. It's empowering people to be everything that God created them to be, that Jesus died for them to be, that the Spirit comes to vivify and sanctify them to be. Thank God that high school was there because someone in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles said we should be there. Just as the civil rights movement was gaining steam in the United States, someone said we need to be there. Thank God Divine Word missionaries, well prepared for the task from their experience in the southern United States. African American priests, our first principals, charismatic people, were able to be there to shape that school in a way that was responsive to the community, that the community could trust it and know that it was there for their children. Why do I go on a long time about a graduation 30-some years ago in a faraway place? I think in some ways the dynamic is the same as here. Your circumstances are completely different from Charles Turner's circumstances. But you came into an environment in which caring adults, caring mentors, Divine Word missionaries, and faculty members tried their best to create an environment in which you can realize your talents, your abilities, perhaps, I'm sure, things that you did not realize about yourself before, that you could be, that you could do, that you could offer to others. Out of this circle of caring, if you will, you are empowered as God would have you be empowered. And today we kind of give thanks for that, and we send you off. But we don't send you off in any way, as we didn't send Charles Turner off with the sense that he does not have a place to belong. It's always home. It's always, even if not physically, in your mind and in your heart, you know that such places can exist, and that it's your responsibility to create such places, create such environments in which people can feel empowered, can realize the people that God wants them to be. St. Paul says, when I do all this, I just do that because that's how I get to be part of the gospel. So I could claim this and I could claim that and I could do this and I could do that. At the very end, he says, I just do it because that's how I get to be part of the gospel. I hope that's your sense as well. And that final line of the gospel where Jesus is, everybody's trying to touch Jesus. They need to know what he can offer them. You need to be that environment, creating those environments, those institutions, those schools, those places, those ministries. You need to be creating those so that people can touch him. They can feel him because they need to feel him. They need to know him. They need to be uplifted. The world is seeking that. The world is seeking it through you. Thank you so much for the invitation. It was been nice to be back. And I'm sorry I don't have more jokes, but the theme just struck me as kind of a serious one. I remember here a little anecdote. I remember here we had a spring brunch a thing here in the gym to which many people came, and we had the mass before the spring brunch, and the food was being brought in by a caterer, but the caterers were late. So the homilist that day, someone who was at the back telling him, make it longer, because we have to wait for the food to get here. I was sitting here listening to the homily, and I said, what is he talking about? It was just going on and on. Only afterwards did it make sense. He was just told to stretch it out. Well, nobody's giving me any signals from the back, so I'm just going to stop. Thank you very much.